This week's episode of the Irish Dance Podcast is being sponsored by Irish Dance Theatre, who are currently auditioning for spots in their Christmas production, The Celtic Gift, playing in multiple venues in Colorado this December. For more information, please visit irishdancetheatre.com. If you would like to support Irish Dance Theatre, there are a number of ways you can do so. Please go to irishdancetheatre.com/support. My name is Martin Percival, and you are listening to the Irish Dance Podcast, folk dance to phenomenon and beyond. Hi everyone, I'd like to introduce today's guest. She's a teacher, a feis musician, and she's also the Vice President of the organisation RTN. Please welcome Brigid Robine. Hi Brigid.
Hi Martin, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
I'm grand.
Good. Right, we've got a lot to talk about, I know, so let's just dive straight in. How did you first get involved in Irish dance?
My sisters danced at the local parish hall for Kenny Verlin. So we're going back to the early 80s there, late 70s. And after Kenny passed away in that same hall, the Shilling sisters, Aileen and Maura, took over the school. And at that time, I was one of their first pupils. So I never actually danced under Kenny Verlin. I started in 1984, the age of 5, with the Shilling school. And then went on to with Peter Smith later on, right. Because the Shillings were no longer teaching at that point. And that's where I spent out most of my years up until my late teens, anyway, and had some decent success as a dancer. And then when my dancing started to dwindle off, with college and keeping up with work and everything, I started feis musicianing, and that helped pay some bills. And still doing that. So
yeah, of course. So are you an accordionist?
Yes.
So how did you? I mean, you obviously had to have some lessons with that and everything. Was that in the same place?
No, it was very kind of organic. When I was trying to learn Irish music when I was young, the only person that was teaching in the area really at the time was Maureen Glynn. And she was in New York City. And my mother at the time didn't drive into, on highways or anything like that. And there was no Skype or anything. So I just had regular piano lessons and violin lessons and stuff through school, the local music shop. And when I went to Peter, right around that time, we met a fella from Kerry, who was a button box player. And he had just moved out from Queens and into New Jersey, and was looking to pick up some students.
Oh, wow.
And so a bunch of us from Peter and some of the Shilling kids, because, we're all friends at that time. And we started having lessons in, one of my friend's living rooms. And then it got so big that it actually, my parents' living room, was also the site for some of the music lessons.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And so Dennis Calvin would come out to our area, to my house and to our friend's house, and do lessons there. And we did quite well. We were winning flaws and going to Ireland and stuff. So we did pretty well there.
Yeah, a good Kerry man. I love that.
Oh, yeah. No, Dennis is grand. and Dennis, he moved to Ireland, and now he's back. He's living in Boston now.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, the music and dancing at the same time. That's brilliant. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. We were always busy.
Yeah. So then, how did you how did you transition into teaching?
That happened much later. It wasn't really something that I thought I had much of an interest doing until after I had my daughter.
Right.
And in the area where I live now, where I ended up settling, we're in a pretty rural, woodsy, spread out area, and it still is pretty void of Irish dance music. And there's no sessions. There's like one somewhere, very rarely. You have to travel everywhere, and I just thought, well, geez, if I don't start creating the opportunities, I'm going to be sitting here waiting for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So that's really all I started doing was just wanting to do something for my daughter, and then, maybe create that community that was missing out here that we had so easy out in New Jersey, where it was a little more populated,
Yeah, that must have been quite difficult to going from like having all of that and then to a rural area with nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some great, I mean, I'm looking at a deer walk through my backyard. It's fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
But the deer doesn't play a box, so we don't have a lot of opportunity, and it is hard. It's always a fight when you're in these areas that are spread out to really get everybody together, so it's always a struggle, but those that are committed to whatever it is, was the dancing or the music, they're committed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a small number of us.
I think it's admirable when people are in that. I mean, it's all you can do, right? Is just get people together as much as you can. So talk to me about the journey then.
The journey to teaching.
It's in the blood, and we can never get rid of it.
It is. It is and that's it. You miss it too much,
right?
And so I decided, well, I'm going to start trying to work on getting my TC and stuff. And just to backtrack a little bit, as a feis musician, I had been hired by other organizations to play at their feishes. So I was aware of this, I guess, going back about 7 years ago now, even 8, because that was about the time I was making the decision. This beginning, this bubbling up of some new opportunities within Irish dance itself.
Because when you were dancing yourself, like there was no other organizations at that point, right? Yeah.
No, it was. I think when I was about 16, I went to a show, and there was another dance school there, and we were like, we don't know who you are.
Where did you come from?
Like, who are you? And I think they were Kogol or something like that. And I remember thinking, what's that?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I had no idea what that was. So, but if, when you grew up in CLRG in the early 80s, CLRG itself was in the States was very small.
Sure. Yeah.
And it, a lot of what CLRG was doing in the early 80s is very similar to what some of the open platform organizations are doing now, as far as just trying to grow and evolve, So just to move forward. So I did. I sat at 30 something years old. I had just had my son, who was like running around, toddler. And I sat my exam, and it was very intimidating, the whole process, you've done it. And I'm coming back after not dancing for 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
And, thinking, I'm going to go do the Piper that I did at the Oirachtas. No, I'm not.
Right.
Like Davis, no, I am not.
I can maybe do it on my hands. Yeah.
But I got the lilting part down because,
of course.
Because I had that going for me. But I did okay. And then I literally, I fell apart in the Ceol teaching. I made I was like, okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing this. I got it. And then I did something stupid, and it was easily fixable. And I fell apart,
Yeah, threw you for a loop.
And I was kicking myself. I'm like, man, I had,
Yeah.
Because everything else I passed. So that sits with you for a while. And especially at my age, it's like, well, what did I want to start over? It was expensive.
Oh,
I have a family. The traveling, it was a lot. So I just kind of sat back and went, do I need this? Do I need to go through this process again?
Oh, you were so close. So close.
I was so close. But it was, at that point, there was a number of things. Like it kind of gets in your head.
Yes, of course. I understand.
It kind of throws you off, and I'm not really like that kind of person, but it threw me off a little bit. So I thought, well, at the end of the day, I have 6 students. I started teaching in a little ballet studio down the road at that time, and I had 6 students, and I'm like, are they even going to go to a feis? I don't even know.
Right.
If me banging my head against a wall and going through this process and spending another $1,000, is this even something that's going to be feasible? if these kids just want to be recreational dancers or whatever.
Right.
So I thought to myself, well, I guess there's only one way to find out. So I started looking into some of the open platform organizations to see, well, let me bring some kids to some fascias that way and see if this is something that I want to pursue, And I did a lot of homework. I called a lot of people. I knew some of them, others I didn't, and had these conversations. And it turned out there was a feis that was being held maybe an hour from here, which isn't that far. And I brought a handful of kids, and I knew the woman who was running it because I had played for her feis. And it was just such a really nice experience for everyone. And I thought, well, why wouldn't I do this? Like, this is not, what's the difference, So we spoke to them. I brought them my exam scores, and they looked at it, and they said, we had a conversation much like we're having now, and they were asking me some different questions, pedagogical type philosophies, and how would you do this now, and whatever. And they were cleaning up or something from the feis, and a few of the teachers were there, and they called them over, and they're like, oh, you didn't do well on the KLA, and I told them exactly what I did. And they called over some of the teachers, and they're like, hey, everybody, Brigid's going to show us this real quick. And I was like, what? Oh, okay. And I got up and I did it. And we just went through it, and we had fun. And they're like, oh, well, you appear as if you know your stuff,
Wow.
And so they kind of took me on that basis and gave me my TC because they saw that, we know that CLRG is a very comprehensive exam. And I was able to, kind of off the cuff pull out some Kaylee,
Yeah.
So, since then, this is going back 6 years ago. The organization had just started. At that point, I think I was school number 12 or something like that, when I came on board. And since then, our TCRG process has evolved quite a bit. It was done at that point a case-by-case basis, Now it's something that's going to be mandatory for all our teachers so going forward. But just the process with them, the human contact, they weren't these, nameless faceless people in another country, that I was sending these emails off to. And, it was just a different feel, and my kids enjoyed it. And so I was like, I'm going to stick with this, and see where it takes me. And here I am on the board now. So,
well, yeah. So going back to that first feis that you went to and you had that conversation, what were your initial impressions when you went in? Like, was it just like a CLRG feis?
It was just smaller.
Yeah.
Obviously we don't have as many dancers. It was similar. The names of some of the levels were a little different, but it's essentially they're the same. I really didn't know what to expect with the standards.
Yes.
You have some preconceived notions of open platform, and are these kids any good or whatever. If we walked in there thinking we were going to win it, no, we did not. There was some standard there. There were some kids that were doing really well. So we didn't just, so the standard I thought was very good. It was just smaller. It was quieter. My husband had been with me to some CLRG feis when I was a musician and stuff. And he came to this one. He's like, where is it? They're all so quiet. The parking lot, there's spaces. Right. So that was, I think, my initial thing was, wow, this is kind of small and this is kind of intimate. I guess that would be the word, be intimate, and a lot more friendly and accessible.
Okay, so I love what you're saying. I think when I first started dancing in England, it would have been fairly small as well, even in the commission. But in the area that I grew up in and that kind of thing, and I think that's probably what we're all used to is fairly not gigantic feisna, even though nowadays they're ridiculous. But I'm just wondering. I've had some conversations with people about, even within the structure of commission, that there should be more opportunities for competition, and so we need to have a lot more maybe hyper localized competitions and stuff like that. And that your explanation of the open platform fesh that you went to sounds like that to me. I mean, if we could have enough going on that we had small intimate competitions for people, I think it would be a lot more encouraging and a lot more inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not in any way knocking what CLRG is doing. They've been doing it for so long and they do it well. And I think, society changes and the people that are dancing now are different. It's a different mindset too than when we were younger. We don't have the Irish necessarily dancing anymore.
Right.
And this isn't the only thing that they're doing. So a lot of folks, it is a big put off to be going to these big events and spending a lot of money and feeling like just a number, So I do like that's pretty much what open platform is. They're smaller. It's like, I think it was Pat Fay who was vending the shoes at one of our feshes, and he called us mini commission. And It was funny because I was like, I never thought of it that way, but he said, it's just mini, it's just smaller. It's similar, it's tiny.
Yeah, no, I find the whole thing fascinating because, of course, even within the Irish Dance and Teachers Association of North America, I mean, what we're trying to do is promote Irish culture and dance. And so, I mean, whoever's doing that, it's all great, And so in terms of this podcast, I wanted to, which is great that I'm interviewing you today because I want to be as inclusive as possible. My background is commission and Kogel, but I'm aware that other organisations are out there and it's growing. And I just think Irish dancing in general is growing. And what the other organisations are speaking to or promoting is back to that, like local, smaller competitions and culture, what you're saying. And that makes a lot of sense to me for parents and, just for teachers to be able to be in a much more intimate environment. And I don't think it takes away from the competition experience because it's not like any easier for them and I think in some ways it's harder because if you have a small group of kids, and you have two or three that are, really good, those two or three kids are going to haunt you. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Through everything. And so I don't find that the levels are, it's any easier because it's smaller. I think in some ways competition's harder, but it just doesn't seem as stressful.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And yes, and building on up into bigger competitions, this, that, and the other, we all understand what the competitive world is like and how that has to happen. But at a local, beginner level, I think it's, I think it can be really intimidating and off-putting for children. And I don't want to subscribe to the everyone needs to win mentality of America at the moment. But what I would like is some inclusivity and just a general sense of fun around a hobby that we all love, And yes, once you get to a point where you need to take it more seriously, then take it more seriously. I understand all of that. But just talking to you about this makes me think a lot about what it is that we're doing right and what we're doing wrong about including, because basically our customers are our students, right, and the parents. So as more inclusive as we can make it, I just think to myself, with the open platform Feshna and commission Feshna, the levels are pretty much similar, right? So you're going to have to start a beginner and you're going to have to work up a set of grades and that kind of thing. So I think Irish dance is Irish dance. And if we had a national or international curriculum that everybody was holding a standard to, it wouldn't matter what organisation you were dancing with, that we're all heading in the same direction, And I think that you hit the nail on the head with that. I think if you came to any of our majors, and you saw, our national champions, and whatnot, because we do have majors, Yeah. We have Oirachtas and we have nationals. And, I think you would see a lot. You wouldn't see a big difference in the levels at all. So how we get there in the end, we're all getting there. Exactly, and it's all kind of on the same mission, which I find fascinating. I find it really fascinating because I think we can, if we have a dialogue between organisations, we can learn a lot from each other and see why there is division in what we're doing, and maybe it just does need to simply be that different divisions of what we're doing, so we're all heading to the right direction. But that's my personal belief, and I'm not sure whether that'll happen in my lifetime or if we'll get some.
Well, we can all hope for that.
Absolutely.
And I don't think you're the only person with that thought. I get a lot of I have a lot of folks that will contact me or somebody in the organization from other organizations, some from CLRG, some from other open platform organizations, and they'll ask us the questions. But then it's like we're not supposed to acknowledge the conversation took place. And it's funny to me, especially since I'm at CLRG events, I'm playing the feshes, and somebody will come over to me afterwards and they'll whisper something in my ear like, thanks for that conversation. Yeah, no problem. It to me, I find that, why are we so afraid to have this dialogue? This dialogue should happen. It doesn't mean that we hate CLRG. It doesn't mean that we hate it. It's just we all have a slightly different way of approaching what we're doing.
Yes.
It might be just, something like, we're a little, maybe we don't go as far as you as CLRG with maybe the tanning and the wigs and the dresses, right? Maybe we just keep it a little simpler in general. There's some organizations that don't really like to see a lot of point work and overcross going on. They're a little bit more traditional, so their rules are based more on their steps than on maybe other things. But at the end of the day, if you took a champ dancer from all the different organizations, I would love to see something like that, like a big old dance off.
I would too. I would, absolutely.
And I think it would be a lot of fun. And we do see that in open platform because we do jump. I've taken my kids to other events, other organizations' events, if it meant supporting an open platform.
Yeah. And that's I think the biggest craw that I have is that, with CLRG, we are exclusive and we can't have open, we can't go or judge or do anything in any other organisation. And I find that disappointing. Whether that changes or not, I don't know. But I really like the fact. What's that?
It's a heated topic.
It is, but it doesn't need to be, because I believe that all of the organisations are bringing something to the table. But fundamentally, the philosophy of all of us is to promote Irish dance, and we might be doing it in slightly different ways, like you said, with the rules about point work and stuff like that. If we knew of who was doing what and what the rules were all across the board, then teachers and parents and students would have more of an opportunity to decide what would be the right path for them. Because, I can speak from my experience, and that was I was commissioned until I was 14, and then I quit for a couple of years, and when I went back, my teacher had moved to Kogel, and she changed her style a lot when she moved to Kogel because it was a lot more traditional and it wasn't quite as crazy as what was happening in commission and everything. But the base, everything was pretty much there, so I feel like I have the benefit of both worlds. And when I'm judging, I took my teachers and adjudicators in commission. So I only judge commission competitions, obviously. But when I look at dancers, if they are overcrossing, to me, I find that uncomfortable to look at. And it's not something stylistically that I particularly like, and I only like people that are doing point work that know what they're doing. So it's really interesting to me, and I would love to be able to judge other feisanna, from other organisations. I would absolutely love it, because I think we would be able to open our eyes to a lot more of what's going on. But because we don't have those conversations between organisations, we don't actually know what they're doing.
No. And I think within open platform, we have more of those conversations. So if, I was literally cold called one time. Hey, there's an event going on in Pennsylvania. I understand you're in Pennsylvania. We're trying to get some folks to go. Would you mind going to this fesh? And I said, I wouldn't mind, but I am completely baffled by your rules. If you wouldn't mind explaining to me what your rules are, I'd be more than, and they did. And they're like, here we go. This is how many bars we do. And they're very old school. You dance till the bell rings. So I'm like, okay, so my kids are going to need some more steps. And, whatever it was. And their speeds were a little different, but I found for the beginners and the little ones, it was pretty much the same.
Yeah.
So I brought a couple of beginners and we went and we had a good time. And it was a different batch of kids, different batch of judges, different batch of perspectives.
Yeah.
And we enjoyed it. I'm not saying I wouldn't go back. It's just haven't had the opportunity, the dates haven't lined up for me again or whatever it was. But we have that opportunity to go see what other organizations are doing and what they're doing well. And I can come back from that as, now somebody on the board of directors saying, hey, listen, when I went to this organization's event, they did a really great job of this,
yes.
Whatever it was. And when I'm at CLRG, I see this working really well at some of the fascias. Right. And then when I think our organization does this really well. And then there's some things I'm like, well, this organization has tried that. It didn't work out too well for them. Right. So it really does help to cultivate a really all around, well thought out plan, whatever
absolutely.
It is.
Yeah. It is.
This conversation should happen.
Oh, absolutely. And it's fascinating to me because, by shutting down a conversation, we're basically saying that we're not doing the job that we're supposed to be doing, which is promoting it,
Right.
Which
we just lose sight. We lose sight of what we were here in the first place to
right.
do.
What is the end?
What was I here for the first place to do? My end goal was to create an opportunity for my daughter and now my two daughters and some local kids in the community and build that, what I didn't have here that I grew up with, that community, that little family that, always having something to do on the weekend, always having dance there, always having music there, trying to build that, and that's what we should be worrying about and not all the other drama, whatever you want to call it, goes on. We lose sight of it. We really can't.
Oh, we do, absolutely, and we really get bogged down in the rules of the whole thing. So let me ask you this: if we were to, I'm just going to say, in an ideal world, if we had, because I've had a lot of conversations around the fact that we don't broadcast anything that we do. What are the rules in RTN about that? Do you allow videotaping and all of that kind of stuff?
We don't allow videotaping, but our videotaping rule is because we have one of the biggest rules, I think, that we really pride ourselves on is child safety.
Yes. No, I totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I know I have some students it's fine. I have their parents' permission. They, you can use my child's video on Facebook or something like that to promote your school. But I don't know when I'm taking a video of a line of kids, if that's okay with the other kids on that line.
Right.
Right. And so we don't allow it for that reason.
Yeah.
We do allow it usually for our charity event. Every year we have a fun event at Nationals where you donate money for charity, and CLRG does this somewhat too. Your treble reel competitions usually or some sort of a charity based event, and we do the same thing. And so sometimes those get videoed, but usually it's only by the parent of that group of kids or something that, and it's quick,
I think I saw one. There was the T-Rex dancing.
The dinosaur, right? Yeah, that was our Nationals.
Yeah,
I was there. My daughter was in that line. Same chance. Now with a T-Rex. But yeah, that was our Nationals, and we have fun. Who would do that's a lot of fun. Yes. Let's just have fun there. And it was a great promotion for our organization. It was great promotion for that dance school, and it was great promotion for the organization in general. And the fact that it went viral was just pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's it's little old us. That's little us.
Well, but I think
but we don't. All our rules are on our website. Everything's there.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no hiding what we do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of transparency in what we do.
No, absolutely. And I think it speaks to the fact that video went viral speaks to a lot that people do want to see it. We're kind of starved from from a consumer perspective of seeing Irish dance. And, it's just like, it just blows my mind. I get it. I totally understand from the child safety perspective, but I don't understand it from a choreography perspective. I think, no. I just think that's a little bit of nonsense, really. And if somebody can pick up steps and this, that, and the other. Anyway, but if we were to have more... So if there was more broadcast journalism around Irish dance and we were creating our own narrative around what it was that we wanted to show the world what we do, I think that that in itself would have to cover all of the organisations, because I think just in terms of educating the public, I mean, we don't, as Irish dancers, we're not educated about all the other groups either, so that, to me, would have to start first. We'd all have to know about each other.
Right, and acknowledge that we exist and not pretend that they're just, something to be dismissed,
Right.
If a group of people are existing to do something similar to what we're doing, but doing it differently, it's got to be a reason why they're doing it differently than us. And is it worth taking a look at, And at the end of the day, too, just as in any organization and in any, you have some people, some dance schools or some teachers that do things well and don't do things well. Yeah. So again, it's a collective, you're always going to have to kind of throw out the highest and lowest score kind of thing and take a look at the middle and what everybody else is doing and grow from there.
Yeah.
I do think one day we will see all of us at the same competitions. I do hope for that. But it's not something that I'm going to lead a charge against, and be like, you need to let us in. No, you don't. I mean, that's your business. That's the way you want to run your organization. It's fine. If that's what you choose and it's been working well for you. So, you're big and you're doing well. So,
absolutely.
But I would like it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I would like to see that happen. At some point.
Yeah, absolutely. But even think, just talking to the fact of there are some schools who are struggling running their feisanna because of, of finances, So if it was open to more people would be able to come. Or if we, as organisations, when we localise it, we have it down to so the overheads are smaller, so you don't have to have quite so many adjudicators. You don't, that kind of thing. And it was structured a little bit differently so that you could run a competition very cheaply. I think that would benefit all of Irish dance,
Right. I know my competition, I have 80 dancers come to it, and that's my choice.
Yeah.
I choose to cap it at that number. I have a small dance school. I don't have a lot of parents that can, volunteer. I'm not going to try and run a big event. We're a small school. We have a small church, and the overhead is very small.
Exactly.
And again, it's just a nice little, people love it though. They come to it and people fight to get in under that cap, because they're just it's just such a nice day. It's just such a nice little day.
And it's different options for people. So you want to go to a small feis, go to this one. You want to go to a giant feis, go to this one. So if we had those options, yeah.
We have both, yeah.
And so do you employ, how many adjudicators would you employ then for just one, I would imagine, for 80?
Oh, yeah, I just hire one adjudicator for that. For our larger events, nationals will have three, three judges. We do our nationals and our majors are done a little differently. But if you remember again, the early days of commission, it's not all that far up.
No, it's not.
We allow all levels to participate at our majors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have all the solo dances. So you can enter individuals and then you can enter your all around event, which would be 3 rounds. So it's kind of like a gymnastics. If you want to look at it that way, right? You have your individuals and you have your all around, and you can enter whichever combinations ones if you want. And so we do that for all the levels. So it's nice. The beginners get to go to a majors and get this big prize, right? For doing their real in their life jig, Right. Yay. And then that's such a build for them. And then they still get to go to an event and see all these amazing dancers and go, wow, I can do that.
Yes. And I think that's the important thing, is that they get then to see what they're striving towards. Absolutely. When I was in Cogle in London, there was a very small group there, and we used to have one adjudicator come over for the championships and everything. But I remember doing solos, so I'd get up and I'd do my reel, my light jig, all of that. Even when I was a champion dancer, I was an open champion.
And our champs do the same thing; they can do their solo. Yep. And that's a nice thing too. So you might have some kids that are kind of between levels, and they can do their solo in whatever level they're in. Yes. Or they can opt not to do the championship event because maybe they don't quite fit into either category, and they can, still participate.
Right, participate and build up their skills. Yeah.
Yeah, and so our solo events usually are judged by one judge, and then the all-arounds are judged by the three. I think our New England championships last year had 4 judges because we had 2 rooms running. And our Mid Atlantic championships, I want to say, had, I think 4. We had 3 stages running. So, and I think, but the way they were, I think they were solos first, and then they switched over. So, I mean, we have had a good number of folks, and that's the other thing too. We can get adjudicators from other places.
Yes.
We can ask folks from our. We have CRDM, for example, that will send their adjudicators. Or anybody in Ireland really that's open platform, and they can do their event.
Which I think is great. I think that's amazing. And
it's another perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really important. So in RTN, then, how big is the organization now?
It's growing every day, and I should have an exact number for you, but I think it's growing at the point where I don't even know. We try very hard to keep our website updated. And I know in the last couple of weeks, I've gotten some more phone calls of people like, I'm going to get that application in, and I just don't know if the application has been sent in. I want to say we have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 22 members, which... if you want to look at it this way, if you look at the other open platform organizations that have a presence in the States, there's a few. We are the largest. That I can guarantee. RTN is the largest open platform organization. We might, I have to check the numbers because I can't speak on all the organizations, but I think we have more than all the others combined.
Oh, wow.
There might be 6 or 7 of one organization, or 3 or 4 of another, so on and so forth. So at this point, I think, and we're very regionalized though. We're very, out of those 22 members, we're from New Hampshire to Georgia, with a bulk of the schools in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, few in the, Massachusetts, New England. So that's where you find more of our. That's where you find more of our people. So if you consider the small area really that we encompass, we have pretty good numbers.
Yeah, you're doing well. Yeah, absolutely. So what is the goal for the organization? How big do you want to get, or is that? Oh,
we want to rule the world, just like everybody else.
Well, of course. All that power, right?
No,
all that power.
No. Nobody wants that. I think what our goal really ultimately is just to grow to be a viable organization that doesn't lose its foundations of why we're here in the first place.
And I think that's the important thing. Yeah.
And we also don't want to grow for the sake of growth. We want to grow, with quality as well.
Well, yeah, and I find that interesting because, I have a life outside of Irish dance. I'm a real estate agent, and so there's a professional aspect to what I do on a daily basis. But I find it interesting that we don't really have the conversations about why we do things, and is it really in the best interest of the people that we're supposed to be serving? And I just find that really interesting,
Yeah, I mean, for example, this year we just, I said we had been growing, and now we're growing to the point where we're like, we really need to get that TCRG program buttoned up to the point where we have that formal exam laid out and the process laid out. And because we have all these folks now that are joining us, and we're like, well, but we need to make sure that we're all holding to a standard as well. So the standard,
just that you're all on the same page. Yeah.
Right. Right. some of the things that we want with our growth is, I said, child safety is always our number one. So every member has to have a criminal background check. A part of membership applications is, you need to have some letters of recommendation, which I believe CLRG does as well. And now that we have our TCRG program really up and running and organized, and we have all these members now, you will be required to pass your TCRG within 2 years. And those who are visiting or new to us, we get a lot of new schools, right? Young schools. That's fine. You can still compete until the novice level. Like your little ones can compete in the meantime. So you can have your beginners and advanced beginners, we call them intermediate, compete at our fishes until you get your TCRG. So you're still involved, but it's a good way of kind of ensuring that all of our members are still, of a high standard, and we're starting to offer, again, with a lot of the new members that have come on board in the last couple of years, like teacher trainings or workshops and stuff. So one of the things I've taken up this year for my job on the board is, hey, what would you like to have as like a workshop? Would you like information on teaching kids with special needs? Would you like a workshop on Kaylee? Would you like a workshop on business promoting? Like what kind of topics would you as teachers really like to see in some sort of a workshop? And how can we make it happen? And so that's stuff that we're really starting to work on, teacher development.
Yeah. That to me is fascinating. We've had some conversations in I know in my region in commission we've had conversations around that, I find it fascinating. And we should all be doing continuing education. I wonder would we be allowed to attend your workshops? I wonder.
Well, that I don't see. We don't have any rules saying you guys can't participate in our festivals or anything like that. We're open. Anybody can come in.
Yeah.
So really, it falls back on. Although I think most of our workshops, for teacher enrichment, would be for our members. It would be like a member.
Well, that would make sense. But I just know sorry, and I keep going back to real estate just because that's what I do. But we have continuing education events, which is sponsored by either a title company or a lender or something like that, and it's open then to all of the agents in my office, and then once it's gone out to them, then it goes out to the general agent population, and so people from other brokerages can come in and learn and this, that and the other, and nothing is ever looked upon as if that's a strange thing to do. And I'm wondering if we can get to that point with the Irish dance teachers, is that we can learn from, of course I can go out and I can get this information wherever I need to get it from, but if something that's curated specifically for Irish dance teachers, I think that would benefit a lot of members in different organizations, And
I think within other organizations, we all have those teachers that have a strong,
absolutely,
because maybe their background, they're private, jobs. If we have that person, like you're a real estate person, so hey, we're getting a new studio. Who here has their own studio space and needs their leases reviewed? I mean, something of that nature. We all have something we can bring to the table and help each other with. So that's kind of the thing is we want to invest in those who are part of our organization. Help make sure that, we're of a high standard, but not just be like, well, you can't do it. No, well, how can we make this possible? How can we help you get to this level so that you can stay here and be happy and not feel intimidated or whatever, whatever it is. And that's just, again, a very different perspective than if we want to backtrack to me attempting to take my TCRG all by myself 15 years later, looking at all of hurling videos. That was like, wow, it was a really scary experience. Well, right. So we don't want that to be
no, and I agree, and I do think I actually do think that the whole exam situation is changing, and because at one point I know it was kind of like a closed shop. So you only wanted to let certain people in, and this, that, and the other. And I understand that from a protection standpoint, teachers protecting their money coming in, basically. But now I believe it's very different. I believe that, it's open to merit, and, and this, that, and the other. And a lot of teachers going now, to take their exam do feel intimidated, and I know that the exam authority are probably working on trying to change that perception and everything. But at the end of the day, what we need to do and want to do is to encourage more people to learn Irish dance, and that so that our art form flourishes. And to do that, we need more teachers. And there are, like you, in a rural area, there are so many spaces that could benefit from having teachers of any standard. Do you know what I mean? It just, we need people to be teaching Irish dance, and then we need to, for those students, if they want to go elsewhere, can know exactly what's out there in the world of Irish dance, and because one teacher is going to be great for one student and another teacher is going to be great for another student. That's life. That's how it works, And
organizations are the same way. What works for me and my students might not work for you and your
students. Right. And then, but not closing down the lines of communication, especially because we're supposed to be serving our clients or customers or, that kind of thing. Sure. So, I find it fascinating. So, and I'm really interested in the perspective of you as the vice president of RTN, and I appreciate your honesty and candor about your journey, because I think a lot of people will resonate with that. Especially
I can't be the only one.
No,
I can't be the only one who, and I think we all commiserate about our exams. Right at the end of the day, oh my God, I went to the exam and this happened, or whatever. And I think it's kind of almost a bonding experience.
It is.
We have those conversations.
It's like the survivors.
The trauma.
It is. It is a traumatic experience. I will agree.
So, we have some folks that have been CLRG members maybe in the past, whether it's TMRFs or people that have passed the CLRG exam, just to say, hey, I passed the CLRG exam.
Yeah.
But because it's considered the exam, right? But it doesn't mean I want to be a member.
Yes. Yeah, that's another question. So if there are teachers or dancers out there listening to this who are interested in your organisation, how do they get in touch with that organisation?
Well, first, our website is pretty updated. It's very comprehensive. There's a lot of information on our website. It's rtnirishdance.com. And it has a lot on there. So sometimes you don't even know what questions you have
right.
until you start going through the process, right? Because you've read it, but it's not, clicking with you. We always suggest make a phone call. I'm a very accessible person where it's not like you're calling some person really far away that might be like uptight or something. Pick up the phone and call me. My phone number, go to my website, get my phone number. It's there, for my dance school, or, send an email to RTN. Directly and just ask whatever questions you need to ask. And sometimes, I'll pick up the phone and call, and have the conversations. I said I have about 2 or 3 a year with folks from other, either independents or from other organizations. And we, sometimes they join, sometimes they don't, and that's because whatever they're looking for at the time. But getting the information and just knowing that there's other folks out there. And I could talk to you on the phone and say, what you're telling me is it sounds more along the lines, you might be along the lines of thinking of this organization.
Right. Yeah.
And so this is what we do. This, as far as I understand what they do, give them a call as well. Don't just jump on us, call around,
shop
see
around.
Who else has what out there. Shop around. There's options, because you don't want to feel like you're trapped in this decision. And we don't want our members to feel that way. So we're very open. We're very transparent. This is what we do. And at the end of the day, we're still, we're 6-7 years old. So we're growing. And ourselves. So there's some things that are still evolving with us. And as we get bigger, changes, have to be made, to accommodate, the size, just like CLRG back in the day. I was a novice dancing at the Oirachtas, can't do that now.
No, right.
And again, because that's the size of the organization at the time. So, we're open, we're very open door, very mellow. You don't ever have to feel, we're not an intimidating group of ladies for the most part. We would like to see some more men. We would like to see some men. Because we're all ladies at the moment. And another thing, with any organization is, you're not always going to agree.
No.
There's going to be some people that are not going to agree. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, we can all agree to disagree. And somebody might be a little annoyed at somebody for a little while, but then we go to the next session. Hey, how are you?
Yeah.
And we, and we move on.
And if there's a structure but in the organisation that it's a democratic process, then it shouldn't matter. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And if people are upset, with, something with the board, we every year before the end of the year, a teachers meeting. Hey, anybody have anything you want to discuss at the meeting this year? Anything at all? Anything you think that we could solve, with a simple vote or a conversation? Some things aren't going to be solved.
No.
But if there's that we can work towards, let us know. And we do ask for that feedback every year. We don't always get it, so which I guess is a good thing. People are happy, I guess. But it's always there, and it doesn't matter if you're the new person or the person there, since we started.
Yeah. I find that really interesting. Like I've been doing a lot of just research and stuff like that. It fascinates me, how things are governed, and I feel like with the CLRG, it's very central. It's very centralised. So we've got the commission in Ireland and the members that come from all regions to the meetings and stuff. With the centralised.
I call CLRG the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
That's how I best describe it. You have the Vatican, and then you have all your archdiocese, and you branch on out, and then you have your open platform organizations. We're like the Protestants, we're like the Lutherans, right? And so we've had some fundamental difference along the way, and we've, but if you walk into any one of the churches, you're all praying to the same God, right? So, that's kind of the best way I can possibly describe.
That's absolutely brilliant.
What we do.
That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
So some of us are a little more legitimate than others, right? Some are, you want to get into a cult, but yeah. And another thing, but I didn't mean to cut you off, fine. But we are a US based organization. We're the only Irish dance organization that is based in the United States. So you don't have that separation.
Church and state. Yeah.
But yeah, in a way. And I think one of the things that people have said to us when they've called us for information is, where, who are you affiliated with in Ireland and who do we have to pay?
Right.
Right? And, no, it's just us. One dues. That's it. And we're right here if you need something, So I think that was a big draw for a lot of people, was that the Americans don't, a lot of Americans who are members of any other organization, not just CLRG, don't always feel
like they're like they have a voice. Absolutely.
Right, so that they have an exam to go to without spending thousands of dollars, or dues, more dues. So we tend to be a little bit. I think that was a big draw for some folks too. That we're just one entity.
Yeah, and like I said, I find it interesting because there's more of a decentralized system of governing, and I just wonder what the future holds for Irish dance, because I don't know. I think CLRG is a huge organisation, and with that comes huge bureaucracy issues, and it's just that happens in any large organisation,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And something else that someone else had, a CLRG person that had brought up that actually had the conversation with me and wasn't afraid to have it, was, if I was a doctor or a lawyer, right, I would be expected not only to pass my examination, but the more professional organizations that I became a part of, the better it looks within my field. So why am I so limited to just one? Why can't I get my certifications with a couple of different organizations? What harm would that cause?
Exactly. And that's the question. What harm would it cause?
It is. What harm would it cause? Would it really be a horrible thing? And I think I understand CLRG wanting to make sure they're holding everyone to a high standard. And of course we want that too, so I understand why it is what
absolutely.
it is.
But when you're talking about competition with children, if you have different levels of competition, it doesn't matter who teaches them, because they'll be dancing in front, like in a panel of their peers. So they'll be judged on what they can do against the relative level of the competition. So in my mind, it doesn't matter who taught you to dance, because unless they're doing something fundamentally strange or odd, then well, I'm sure it does, but it's just like I'm not quite sure what the purpose is of governing and ruling, having this whole book of rules handed down to teachers, when really all we need to do is teach Irish dance, and and more help about doing that would be beneficial, rather than just what we're not supposed to do,
Right.
Oh, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Stay on the pod. You're not the only person on that soapbox. I'm going to tell you right now. There's a lot of people standing on that same. It's a pretty crowded soapbox. But again, I don't have a horse in this race, really. I'm just doing me and what's good for my little school. And because I like what the organization is doing, and being part of the board, it's growing two things at once, right? I'm growing a small dance school in a very rural area, and I'm growing a open platform organization in a CLRG world, So I don't know, maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment, it's about that growth and building across the board. So, we do what we can, and I would love to see one day the doors open up, even if it's just for like some majors or something. A couple of competitions a year,
whatever it is. Yeah.
Like how, and I did inquire, and I know that CLRG does have some what they consider open feshes, but it's in where they consider our remote areas that CLRG is moving into, like in other countries and stuff like that.
They're doing their missionary work.
Missionary, So I do understand that they understand the concept of what open platform is, and COGAL is open platform in the United States, but it's not anywhere else. And they do that because they need to cultivate, right? And the only way people are going to know is to attend their events.
Right. And that's actually a really good point. If you had open competitions where you had representatives of all organizations, then, the organizations themselves could vie for membership. You could be I wouldn't say soliciting, but you could, show what the benefits of your organization over another one. And, people could legitimately have a choice then about where they're taught.
It wouldn't be just kind of like imposed upon them. I just have this image of like all the different tables outside the voting booths. You said that, all the different candidates and everybody had your brochure, But I mean, there are a ton. I mean, I'm even learning about open platform. I'm like, who's this? I don't know who this is. There's tons of organizations.
Yes.
I want to say I get maybe 9 or 10. And at least 5 that I know of that have some presence in the state.
Yeah, I just find it fascinating, because, like I said, at the end of the day, I think the competition should be just about what is in front of an adjudicator at that time. Maybe it's coming from my ego. Maybe I want to be able to judge everywhere.
And we would love to have you. We would love to have you, because that's the other thing too. We like to see different perspectives. That's why I take my kids to feshes, right? Because we want that feedback.
Right.
what I think is okay, or maybe, you see that kid doing that thing a little quirky, but it's kind of like the way they do it, and you kind of let it slide for a while, and then finally, like, they can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it was
right.
butt wig or something on a zigzag because they're like 6, you let it go. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess gotta fix it. Whatever it is. Or it's like, did you ever notice that this kid is doing this? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
That's what that is. It was something's bugging me. And that's why we take that.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Get that perspective. So to limit who's giving them the perspective is disappointing.
Well, not that I want to get down that whole conversation of, competition stuff within the business world, but it is kind of restricting business and competition, but that's not that's another conversation.
I'm not getting on that. I'm not having that conversation.
No.
I'm not having that one.
Do you, as an organization, do you offer grade exams?
We do.
Yeah.
We have 8.
And that's great.
We have 8 grades. And that will be required for the TC after what year? 2021, I think, something like that. Like, because we have, again, grades exams aren't, again, just kind of coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
So we're giving everyone a few years to get them under their belt before we start requiring, much like CLRG did. So we have 8, but our grades exams will give you credit towards your dancing.
In your teacher's exam? Yes. So if you pass all 8 grades, then you only have to do, you don't have to do all the dancing. And I'm not sure about that. I'm not an examiner, so I'm not 100%, but I don't want to say the wrong, but I know you get credit. Whereas I don't know if CLRG, after you do the grades exams, if you get exempt from any part. No, it's just a prerequisite. Yeah.
Yeah. No, so we give you credit.
That's interesting. Yeah. I'm not an examiner either. I'm a grade examiner, but I'm not a full examiner. So,
Right.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's very interesting. Well, I have a bunch of kids taking their grade 1 exam today. Oh, how cute. Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. My beginners are taking the grade 1s,
But isn't that that's just, the kids love that. And the kids have no idea about different organizations. They're just learning to dance.
Right.
Yeah.
My family start to learn about it because they do ask us about other festivals, and I'm like, and I'll say to them, hey, there's so-and-so's event coming up. It is open platform. I know maybe it's a little bit of a drive, but maybe you have some family out that way. Maybe you might be interested in going. Right. If it's something that you want to make the trip for, let me know. I'll research the rules. We'll get you entered.
Yeah. And there you go. So you're advocating for your students. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. There is one, we do have the rapid fire question section, if you don't mind.
Okay.
But
go for it.
Okay, so this is just, the vice president of RTN in a nutshell. What's your favorite food?
Chicken.
River dance or Lord of the Dance?
River dance.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
The best what?
Piece of advice you've ever been given.
Oh, this is tough. This isn't rapid. Best piece of advice I've ever. If you're going to do it, don't do it half rear-ended.
I love that.
Whatever you're doing, do it all the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't leave it. Don't leave anything hanging.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Is there a book that you've read that changed your life?
On Rincafornia?
Yes, I would imagine it did change. Oh, that is the best answer I've ever been given. Thank you.
All right.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Right. So then this is in terms of your own dancing. Is there something that you feel like you were particularly successful as a dancer, and something you always had challenges with?
The challenges is easy to name. I always had a difficult time with my right foot. I always wanted to kick in. That darn right foot. It would go, and I think by today's standard, it would be much worse. The turnout wasn't as big of a deal or as accentuated, I think.
Right.
Then. So that right foot always gave me a little bit of tough. I think if you were to talk about the strengths of my dancing, I think I was one of those kids. I wasn't the tall girl with the long legs. I was the short girl with the power legs. So I could do a Kilkenny and follow it up with a Piper at a show or something and beat the heck out of the floor, and there would be little to no effect on me or whatever. That I had.
I love that.
But I was not, the pretty little subject dancer. That wasn't it.
So
wasn't my.
So same question as a teacher: successes and challenges.
I think there's a lot of challenges as a teacher, especially, I guess, in the area where you're in, whether it's just, cultivating quality students and families that, buy into the same ideologies. I think is probably the number one challenge, followed very closely by, how hard to push them. When you have, a different mindset parent who thinks, well, some of them want them pushed very hard and some of them don't want them pushed very hard. And then you have the parent that wants the child pushed hard until you push them hard. And then all of a sudden it's okay.
Right. Steep learning curve there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, where's the line? Everybody's line's different. Yeah. And I think the success, and I think we all measure success differently. And one of the successes was, I have some great parents, and we had our nationals this year. And I had, my highest level dancer was novice, which is my daughter, and she did okay. She has the turned-in feet, so
she needs to work on that. Yeah,
she got my feet. She got that turned-in foot. But she, I had a little fellow that won the beginner championship, right? And I had all of my kids ended up going home with something.
Good.
Whether it was an individual medal, a Kaylee medal, whatever. And the parents were really very happy. And they're like, Brigid, you don't understand. We come one day a week for an hour and a half. You're competing against schools who require 3-4 days a week,
right,
who have these folks coming from overseas doing workshops, and we still showed up and we brought 6 kids and 6 kids went home with something.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
And I was thinking, well, I didn't have a champion or whatever. They're like this and that. The ones that were here held their own, whether they were beginners or not. And we're competitive with those kids that have all the time and resources that they don't have. Right. So that was a nice measure of success that the parents appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you've got very good parents, because there are some parents in some schools that wouldn't acknowledge that, which I think that's a testament to your teaching. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So last question then, if you were to give some advice to aspiring young Irish dancers, what would it be?
Well, that's a tough one. I would say work through the hard stuff. Don't walk away when it gets hard. There's always going to be a point where it gets hard, whether things came easy to you from the beginning and then you hit a point where it's too hard, or if you have to fight from beginning to end. Don't walk away from the fight.
Yeah, just keep up the fight. I love that. Right. That's great. Well, listen, Brigid, thank you so much for this conversation. It's really enlightening conversation. I really, really do appreciate it.
I'm excited that you took the time to talk to us, because we're always willing to talk.
I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. A huge thank you, as always, to Sean Softly for the title music to this podcast. His album, Fesh Strings, Music for Irish Dance Volume 1, is available on iTunes. I have a small favour to ask. Please visit theirishdancepodcast.com and fill out the short survey about the podcast. Every response is read. Please let your voice be heard about the podcast. I would very much appreciate it. Thank you and have a great day.